We're checking in with 35th District State Representative Andrew Fink as the calendar year winds down for the legislature, the legislative year winding down as well. We've talked about some things that happened and some that didn't happen for the legislature this year. We'll kind of circle back to that here in just a second. One of the things, though, that did wrap up just before the end of the year, the governor had been proposing this commission to look at population in Michigan, growing population. A little controversy here locally of that because the Senate leader had nominated Jonathan Lindsay, our state senator, for that position on that commission. Never got put on the commission by the governor, but they came out with some recommendations last week. First blush for you, what did you take away from those recommendations, or maybe in some cases lack of recommendations?
Hey, Ken, good morning. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I think they could have used Senator Lindsay's help because it wound up being a 19-1 vote on this set of recommendations. And the criticism from the no vote, which was my colleague Pauline Wenzel, represents an area a little bit west of Branch County, north and west, I guess, was that many of the items discussed here are similar to seemingly endless discussions in the legislature. And then the crux is always, how will these things be funded? And there's no recommendation for funding mechanisms in the report. And so Rep. Wenzel said, and she was there the whole time. I don't have as much of a feel for how these conversations went, but she said essentially that the Growing Michigan Together Council failed to innovate, which was allegedly the entire point, was to get new perspectives on these problems because we've been stuck. And what are the problems? Well, the main thrust of this deal appears to be education, and the signature plan is to add a couple of years of college to every student's capable, what they're promised by the state. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I'd say is, to the extent education is what's keeping our population from growing, and I'm not really sure it's much because we're losing our college-educated folks, I think, at more or less the same rate as everybody else. So I don't really think that that's the biggest thing here, is that our education system is so much behind other states, although we do have problems there. But I think where we're behind, it's early. I mean, many districts are failing kids at early ages. That's why we have this controversy about the third grade reading law, because so many kids in our state can't read in third grade. Whereas at schools that make it a priority, and where there's sort of an overall setup for the kids to succeed, you can have kids reading by the end of kindergarten, most of them, almost all. So it's as I've said many times, it's nice to see the emphasis on the need to grow our state, because our state has been shrinking relative to the population growth of the country for so long. But it is sad to see that there's just not a real attack on the issues that I think would make a difference. And we can get into those if you want. I know we've talked about it before.
Well, what was missing from that report then?
Well, so it's easy to compare our state to states that are growing, because they're the easiest way to look at this is go to 1980, when our state was 9.2 million people, then go to 2020, when our state was about 9.9 million people. So less than 10% growth in those 40 years, whereas the country had grown 50% from about 225 to like 235 in the same period, 225 million to 335 million. The states that absorbed all of that gain, they tend to be states with lower overall regulatory burdens. That's a little bit of a vague category because every state's a little bit different in what they regulate and how, but still, that if you try to total it up, you get a lower burden in those growing states. But you definitely get lower tax rates, including corporate tax rates, and lower energy costs, including corporate energy costs. And of course, our primary concern is the way Michigan families are living. So talking about these corporate tax rates or corporate energy costs, it's not really what we want to be focused on a day-to-day basis. But of course, those costs are passed on to customers, and so the cost of manufacturing, and therefore the wages for workers, or the cost of goods, and all of that is also affected by energy rates on manufacturing, which is the largest consumer of energy. Our energy rates are higher, our taxes are higher, and our regulatory burden is higher than the states that are growing, on average. and we're more like the states that are shrinking: Illinois, California, and New York. So I think if we want to be aggressive about growing our population, we have to be aggressive about improving the environment here for people to produce and hire producers. I do think that the education issues are a part of it. I think housing is a significant part of this, where you show a prospective employee around your town, and they say, "Where am I going to live?" And in many parts of Michigan, it's a tough question to answer. So I think there are other elements here, but those three things: taxes, energy costs, and regulatory burden, I do think are the commonalities in the growing states.
Now, what was in the reports that will give marching orders for the legislature after the first of the year? Anything?
Well, I mean, because the ideas here are not that different, I mean, it's almost hard to say, because 2 years of community college, that's been part of the governor's plan, I think, more or less the whole time she's been there. So it's a little tough to say. And then the other thing is, as I don't remember if we discussed very much here, Ken, but the House is currently 54 Republicans and 54 Democrats in terms of who's elected to the House. And there are special elections in April that could, and well, I guess they will change that one way or another. And so it's a little tough to say how productive the House is going to be, because as you probably have seen, this past year was the most partisan year in many decades in terms of which bills moved. And so the mode has been kind of to do things with a bare majority. There is no majority in the House right now, and so it's a little tough to project how things are going to go, because it will be a significant shift in mood.
State Representative Andrew Fink with us this morning. You're going to be moving into your final term, your final year in the Michigan legislature. Do you have your list of priorities set?
Well, yes. I'll say it's to try to, under these circumstances, given the makeup of the legislature and the governorship, it's to try to make sure that issues that are unique or particularly relevant to districts like mine are heard. Just an example, I had another meeting with folks from the County Road Commission and some Amish families recently. That's one of a series trying to address the impact of buggy traffic on our roads in every way: the safety of the drivers and riders, the damage to the roads, the funding, all of that. That's something that not everybody around the state understands is an issue that affects quality of life in our district differently from other places. So I want to make sure that I continue to be a voice for issues like that. In addition to fighting on the education front, fighting on the again on these issues of taxes and overregulation and the personal liberties that we've seen in some cases reduced in the last year. I think those things are all near and dear to the heart of my district, and that's what I'll be trying to focus on.
You'll also be juggling, obviously, quite a bit this next year, as you've announced your run for the Michigan Supreme Court. When will you really start gearing up that, or have you really started gearing that up already?
No, I think there is. We've been going, and I've been around the state to quite a number of places, probably, I don't know, somewhere between a dozen or 2 dozen stops around the state. But that'll become, closer to a daily grind in addition to the legislative job. Really, as this next quarter gets started, it'll start to pick up.
All right, so well, good luck with it. We'll give you a little extra time off here with the holidays, so I think we're scheduled to get talking in about a month, all right?
All right, thanks, Ken. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas to you and the Fink family. That is State Representative Andrew Fink with us this morning.